guys here today is because we want to address the violence, fentanyl crisis, and the issues with the youth in our community right now. We know everybody in this room knows this is a big deal. It's something that we've been working on. If you're in this room and you know me, you know I've been working on this. You know I've been going at this for a long time. So we are going to expand out. We're going to bring great minds together. There will be people in here who work in these areas. We're going to ask some questions in these areas, and we want the experts in those areas to respond, and then we want a dialogue. So if anybody has anything that they would like to say at that point, then please jump in. This is recorded, so if you signed up on that sheet and you gave us your email and you want this to come back, you can get it from us. You can get it recorded and utilize it for whatever you want. So that'll go out to anybody. Pastor, go ahead and pray us in.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, again, in the name of Jesus the Christ, we come before you, asking that you would bless our efforts this day, that our words be your words, our thoughts be your thoughts. Then bring us together, united, that we may address the issues that's before us this day. Again, we ask you to touch every heart, every mind, every soul, every spirit. We ask in Christ Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. On our agenda item, it's number 3 listed. It's for our youth intervention specialists. And we want to ask, what is the city doing? First item on there is, what are the most successful strategies for our youth intervention that's actually implemented right now at this present time? So I want to pose that to anyone that's dealing with our youth. What activities are actively involved in our youth in Wichita, Kansas?
So I want to address a little bit of that. And as Lamont, I think to this, as I looked around Wichita, and been studying this lately, to what more do we have? What do we have in Wichita to help our youth right now? What is out there for them to do? Besides skating rinks, besides in wintertime we got basketball. If it's indoors, they're not outside. COVID shut down the YMCA program. I know Cornelius had asked about that.
Boys and Girls Club.
Boys and Girls Club. Are these things that we can bring back to help the youth right now?
First of all, thanks for letting me be a part of this, Jose. You know, I've got nothing but respect for you, bro. In my opinion, I think those platforms are strong. I think we just have to make sure that we're helping our parents understand the value of them, because it starts with them, right? Kids that do well in school, they excel because their parents value academics. Parents that value their kids exploring other options, extracurricular activities, it's because the parents are leading that. And so I salute the Boys and Girls Club and the impact that they make in our community, the YMCA, great opportunity for kids. There's so many different sports they can do there in that platform. WSU Gear Up is an awesome platform for youth as well. I think it just comes down to us helping our youth find the value in that, but I think that just really starts with the parents. And you know, man, USC 259, God bless them, serving these kids and the struggles and the distractions, the overstimulation of drugs, as you brought up, that these schools are dealing with right now. Just helping these kids value the opportunities of taking advantage of those extracurricular activities that are available to them in the school as well. I just think we have to come to find value in those things that are available.
Now, how do we get that information into the parents' hand and into the youth hand? Because that's an issue. The information, activities may be there, the opportunities may be there, but I'm facing an issue of how do we get that information to the grassroots?
I'm gonna say it again, and it really comes down to this. I'm blessed to be a father to many, but I'm also have my biological. In this thing right here, it goes on my nightstand every night. There's so much overstimulation and distractions. There's no structure, there's no boundaries, and we're tolerating things that shouldn't be tolerated. And so because we're doing that, we can't focus on these opportunities. So they're not valuing what they could be valuing, which are, I think sports I consider it to be social currency. I think it's a great opportunity, great teamwork, it creates discipline, it creates accountability. But when we're allowed to be on these phones all day and we're allowed to play video games and look at the broke box, we can't value the things that are available to us once again. So I think they're there. I think people are bringing the attention that those opportunities are there. We just have to get our parents to understand those values again.
So with your emphasis on the parents, when we deal in the most part with single parent families, single moms, single dads who work all day, have the 2-3 kids that they have to deal with, getting them to and from school. The evening comes, they've got another part-time job that they have to do because they can't pay their bills with just the one job. Wanting to put them in extracurricular activities, but having to go and maybe do 2 hours in DoorDash or whatever to pay a bill that they couldn't pay with their other jobs. How do we help those single parent families deal with the lack of time and using those boxes as the babysitter? When we were growing up, we didn't have the box, but we were made to go outside and find something to do and be creative, etc. I would say that we have a lot of opportunity for the creativity. We just have to make sure that our families as a whole have the support and have those issues that they struggle with. Not enough money, not enough reliable transportation, not enough resources that they can actually access to be able to be successful in getting their kids where they need to be.
Thank you all for allowing me to be here as well. I think a lot of it, I think what the brother was saying is relational, right? And so we know that the immediate relationship is with our parents, but because of the lack of parenting or because of absentee parenting, relationships must be built outside the home that can make a greater impact. And so we know the closest place to our household and adult influence is our school system, correct? And so what areas are we who value the information that's being put forth here are actually having access to these schools beginning at an early age? Because we know that things are making a drastic turn beginning in elementary at this point. It used to be high school, right? Now middle school is just taking over. And so where are we who, again, like brother said, he said, you know, he's a father to many. And then alongside of having his biological children, how can we kind of come together and help and build relationships with a lot of the youth, beginning in the schools where that influence kind of takes place and things take a drastic turn for the worse because of the lack of influence and attention being made to these opportunities that they have to better themselves instead of be on the road to destruction.
I think that's really good. You know, I did a study on some of the teams who do violence prevention in the nation right now. And one of those deals that came up with the guys doing this all over the world was he said that most kids are, they feel invisible. So them feeling invisible, they're gonna find a way to be seen. And sometimes what that ends up being, and this is not just gang members that we're talking about all kids. And we're seeing that right now. The kids that are doing shootings and are violent right now are not the kids that you would expect in a lot of these places. They're really not what we think. Or sometimes you can see on the news, right? Bad kids. They're kids who, like you said, fatherlessness. There's something missing, invisible. They seem to feel invisible, and they're going to catch something on fire to be seen, or maybe just to get the warmth from it. So they're ready to burn something down. So a lot of times, this is what we're seeing. This is what we're seeing right now. Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Keenan Charles. I'm with Violence Impact. I am a gun violence survivor. My son was shot and killed December 2nd, 2017. I work with survivors of gun violence, and I also work with youth who are survivors of gun violence who are at high risk. one of the issues I think is we have a lot of grassroots organizations who are out there, who are doing the work, who are putting in the time, who are putting in the effort, but we need to come together with some type of collaboration in one setting.
Exactly.
There's something that needs to be opened up in the city so that we can bring the kids together, those kids that have the single parent home and that, you know, mom doesn't have money to pay for childcare, so she's leaving the kids at home with the younger, to take care of the younger siblings, so what have you. There's all kind of situations that are happening in the family unit that is, you know, setting fire as, you know, to the gun shootings that are going on. A lot of it is lack of parenting, okay? So we're past that point with, you know, trying to get the parents to get the information because the information has been out there. We need a place where we as grassroots can come together and have a wraparound service for our kids. Drop your children off here. Here we have basketball. Here we have classes where they can be taught daily activities of daily living. Teach them finance, teach them things. One of the things that bothers me so much is our young men look outside and they don't see hope in our community. Okay? When I get up every day and I go outside and I look and all I see is liquor stores, smoke shops, and Speedy Cash on the corner, what hope do I see? Okay? We have a lot of positive men that are doing positive things with the kids in the community. And that's what those young kids, those young men need to see. We need some stepped up men to come out there and get to work with these kids and be the parent that's missing in that home.
So the question was, in speaking of the programs that are in place, that do the kids want to participate in those programs? Are those things that will draw kids? And I know there was some comments made about the Xbox and video games, but if you want to draw kids, sometimes we have to be in a space where we have things that are attractive or that they do enjoy. So just the question that I would have is, if you had a outlet where there were projectors and video games, and you had to have a particular type of behavior to be able to qualify to be in that place, or whatever that is, where people can come and we can wrap our arms around those young people and, you know, and draw them in with maybe something that they do enjoy and like doing, rather than some of the programs that are, you know, 30 years old at this point.
When you say type of behavior, what do you mean type of behavior?
That's for you guys to decide. I'm not really, that's just, you know, we have to have a place where we're not having violence in the prevention of violence place. Right?
Almost like a reward system.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Right, you get the full scope of the program.
So you're talking about having a Madden 2K tournament?
Absolutely. And the kids, yeah. Something.
Okay.
Just a thought on this.
You can't do it on a one-time basis.
Correct.
There's got to be something that's constantly active in the communities that the young people can come together. Again, you got all these grassroots opportunities, but there's no warehouse for them all. Everyone is out doing their own personal little thing. If there was a warehouse where we all could come together and we can say, okay, this is how we work, this is how we function, and then we can stem off whatever that personal need for that child is, then we could go through those grassroots operations and say, okay, if you need counseling, if you need mental health, whatever it may be.
It sounds just like the same challenge that is with the homeless. They've got all of these multiple organizations, and they're looking at doing the MAC campus, where what they're hoping is that the organizations will unite and collaborate. Sounds comparable challenge.
Yes.
But oftentimes, if I may, thank you for you being here, thank you. Oftentimes, we get these divisions between these groups though, because of past dealings, grudges being held. And if we're gonna do this for everybody that's part of a different entity here, we're gonna have to let some of our ego go. We're gonna have to let some of these past grudges go if we're really about making this change. So what you're saying is true, but there has to, the same way we're calling on the parents, which is a great point, we have to call on ourselves and humble ourselves in this moment.
Yeah, and I agree. That's what this is about. This is about bringing city leaders and grassroots together, judges, commissioners. Thank you, Rick, for being here. And like Chris Ricker Anderson, he runs staffing company here, bringing everybody together to figure out what we can do, but we need activation. We need.
Hi, my name is Al Ward. I'm a part of Violence Impact under Keaton Charles. I'd just like to chime in here for a moment. There used to be a program here in Wichita called Good Game. It was a faith-based organization, and they ran out of Northeast Magnet. They had over 400 kids every Tuesday night. They fed them, they took care of them. They had teachers from USD 259 who tutored. They had physical activities. They had mental health. They had everything in that USD 259, and they met over at Northeast Magnet. I think it's Chester Willis now. And then they were put out by USD 259. Okay, they had that program where kids could come. They walked in. They walked from the neighborhood looking for a place to go, and they knew that they were going to be safe. We can do that again. Now, not only that, but I understand what you're talking about when you say that there has to be a reward system and stuff like that. That's kind of preaching to the choir also, to me. I think that we need to have something for those kids that are on the bubble, those kids who haven't made a decision yet on what they're going to do. And we have to find something that will pull them back from where they are. And that, whether it be mentoring, and I'm gonna tell you, Violence Impact has tried to get into USD 259 to talk to the kids, take a curriculum that we're putting out to go in and teach them about decision making, to teach them about bullying, to teach them about all of these things, but we're having a difficult time getting in there. So if we can get into USD 259 with some of the help of you all, we can help take care of some of this. One of my good friends, David Gilkey, says, nothing stops a bullet like a job. If we can teach them about finance, teach them about making good decisions, maybe we can cut down on some of this. But we've got to be able to get in the schools where they are, because that's where they spend most of their day.
I agree. Jesse, how many kids do you deal with over there?
So, my name is Jesse Cornwell. I'm a retired law enforcement officer. I also am a minister at First Pentecostal Church at Hydraulic in MacArthur. I assist with team outreach. What that is every Sunday we have 12 to 17 buses, depends on which ones are running. And we scatter the city and we bring in 400, 500 kids every Sunday to church. In my class, I have 120 8th grade to 12th grade kids in my class that I get to minister to every Sunday. I have asked Ms. Keena. I also am a volunteer at Violence Impact and a regular member at Violence Impact. One of the things that we see in our city is grassroots organizations are out doing some awesome work. It's very hard to get funding. When we have to go to business, and you're begging for money to feed these kids that come on Tuesday night to Violence Impact. We have 20 kids that will show up on Tuesday night. Of course, you have to feed them. The biggest issue we also have is transportation. We are not, the kids that need the most help have mom and dad that will drop them off at places to go play the Madden tournaments or the walk-in places and the YMCA. They all have memberships. We're talking about kids that don't have memberships. Mom and dad is not at home. We've been knocking on these kids' door for 3 years and we have not even met the parents yet. And these kids are getting on the church bus, coming to a place where we will feed them. We will teach them how to fill out FAFSA. We will teach them how to fill out, if you need tutoring, we will teach them, obviously you need Jesus. And what we find is difficult with the city is they fund all kinds of stuff, but nobody wants to really look down when grassroots organizations are scrapping for pennies that fall at the bottom of the table. I know there's been some times where I know organizations that can't even keep the lights on right now. So they kind of fade away in the darkness, but they're still ministering to a select amount of kids. And so my ask is that there are some things in the city that we can do to help these kids. Another thing is I just was approved to be a volunteer at JDF, the Juvenile Detention Facility, and juvenile residential. going through that process, it was a little difficult. We started this process how long ago, Ms. Tina? In October. And I'm the only one so far that just got approved to go in there and help volunteer to do some of this stuff.
I got approved today.
Oh, thank God. And so one of the ideas that I would have is there are some kids at juvenile residential that are on the bubble. They have good behavior. They did mess up. We recognize that they messed up. I would like to get with the city of Wichita and take these kids and go out and volunteer.
Should go with the county since we run the county, that's the
In
county.
the county, but we have to, well, this is collaboration. I'm not saying, these are kids in our city. But we would like to go paint the handrails at the courthouse or city hall, or we want to paint a parking lot. These kids should not be tearing and cleaning up stuff. We need to teach these kids how to build.
Yes.
And so today, I had some conversations started at Textron, where I'm currently employed now, and we have sheet metal classes that, I am pushing to give these kids something to build, not clean, not tear down. So when they leave, they can show their mom, I painted that parking lot right there. They're gonna take some pride in our city. And so we're asking for the city. I know there's federal grants and federal dollars that come out, and you can forget grassroots organizations because they will get deemed as not able to administer the grant. And so, but I know there are some funds that the city could use, and I don't know if USD 259 leaves their schools or it allows the gyms to be open after a certain time, but at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock. There are so many grassroots organizations that would just need a space, that the lights will be on. We will do the ministry. There's plenty of grassroots people out here that's willing to do the ministry. Give us a school, open up the schools, let the buses run. How about let the buses run on Sunday? If these kids want to go to church, how about the city of Wichita open up these buses and take these kids to church? Wow, that's something that we can do.
And you're gonna pay for them now or later. And we have not learned that as of yet. You're gonna lock them up and pay for them, or you can educate them and not pay for them later. The old commercial says you either pay me now or you pay me. And we're so far behind the ball, we love to pay later instead of getting ahead of the curve.
And I'll just end on this one thing. I want to minister to these kids before the funeral. I'm tired of going to the funerals and have to officiate. Let's minister to the kids before they get shot. And let's teach them another way. Let's get them, we should be teaching these kids how to make sure that grades are good in school. The kids that are excelling, or some kids that are on the bubble, if the police department would just let me know, I will personally go knock on their door every Saturday and Sunday and invite them to church. We will try to show you a different way. It's more than just trying to change their circumstances. We're trying to change their soul. Once you change their soul, the circumstances are going to be different.
All right.
So
Look,
let's think about this in a different perspective than us just, and I know parenting's bad. I know it. We have bad parents. That's what makes bad kids. That's what we're trying to. But man, we change one kid, we're changing generations. And so don't underestimate the value of a nonprofit organization that has 5 kids in their that they're ministering to. When we change one, we're changing generations. And so I will.
So for time wise, we're gonna move forward. Thank you. And the guys that are holding you out of that place and making it so hard, they're sitting right there in case you want to say something. But listen, we're gonna go forward. I have some questions for the city council and the mayor, and our mayor is in the house. So can we congratulate our new mayor? Yes. Thank you for coming, Mayor. We have some questions for you in city council. One of those questions I'm gonna start with are, what are the current policies that are in place in our city to address youth violence? And how effective have they been so far? And I know you're new at this right now, but I've seen you jumping in, and we're super excited about what you're doing right now. So if you can answer that question.
Absolutely. First, let me say thank you very much for seeing so many folks at the table. This tells me exactly what we need in order to make a difference on any challenge that we have, whether it's homelessness, youth violence, taking pride in our community. Like, all of us at the table means that each and every one of us has an opportunity to make a difference. And so I appreciate that you stepped up and you decided to come here today. Second of all, I'm one person on a council of 7. And so I'm really grateful that I get to lead alongside 6 council members that represent 6 different areas of Wichita. Among one of those council members who's present right now is Mike Hoheisel, who represents Southeast Wichita. And so I just got into my role exactly 3 weeks and 1 day ago. And I am really glad to see that our council wants to work on the challenges. And let me tell you, we work behind the scenes doing a lot of work. And what you see just in front is just one aspect of what we all do. We want to be the collaborators. We want to bring people together. So thank you for, again, being at the table to try to make change. Specifically on the city of Wichita side, one group that I know makes a difference is the Wichita Police Department's Juvenile Intervention Unit. And Alex Avendaño, as well as Chad Ditch, are 2 individuals who are in our schools. They are talking with our kids, and they are making a difference. But it's sad because even yesterday when I was speaking with them, the tragedy over the weekend, it was someone they knew. And then with the city of Wichita, we also have a program called The Way to Work during the summertime. And The Way to Work is an opportunity, again, for young people to have an opportunity to earn a check during the summer, learn a skill, learn all of these tools that will be helpful for them as individuals in our community. And unfortunately, again, an individual from this weekend was someone that was a graduate of our The Way to Work program. So for every one that we share as a sad story and a heartbreaking tragedy in our community, there are many others that maybe we don't even talk about because they are also successes. And I want to make sure that we are continuing to move the needle forward by being supportive of the organizations we already have. But maybe the disconnect is that not everyone knows that they exist, and you don't know what you don't know, which is why I'm so grateful because my friend Mario Barnes, who is the executive director of Heroes Academy, the former Real Men, Real Heroes Academy, I immediately texted him just 10 minutes ago when I arrived and I said, Mario, were you invited to this? And he drove, hopefully, speed limit, he wasn't that far away, and he was able to come here. Because again, I think if we don't know what exists already out there, we're not able to connect the kiddos. I am a board member for one of the YMCA groups here in town. And what we do is exactly what you're talking about. There's a middle school after school program that after school ends, we keep some of the middle schools open so that kids can get that mentoring, that kids can get that outlet, and that they're not in their neighborhoods possibly causing trouble. But not everyone knows about it. And so there are programs that exist, whether through the city or through organizations in our community, that the thing that we need to do a better job as a city is to communicate that they exist. And we want to be the collaborators because I know that there's greater power in numbers and it's greater if we can share it with more people. So from what I know as a community member is that there are organizations that exist, but I would rather give the floor to the individuals who have been doing that work, like Mike Hoheisel and Mario Barnes, regarding those programs.
Yeah, if I could real quick. Sorry, I'm kind of out of the way here.
That's okay. 1 second. Okay, Mario, can we have you come in and get a seat?
Sure.
Go ahead.
I did want to talk a little bit about the violence interrupter program we are putting on here. We're using some of our ARPA funds. I don't know if any of you know Marquita Atkins.
Marquita Atkins was gonna make it, but she got sick.
Okay. Yeah, the great work she's doing in our community already with teens. She's going to be administering the program to where we have 2 target areas, one in northeast Wichita and one down in my district, South Wichita, where there's a high propensity of homegrown violence. So people who live in the neighborhoods, their family's been in the neighborhoods for years. We're going to get people who've been through the system. Quite frankly, people who have seen the error of their ways. They want to make sure the next generation's not going to mess up the same way they did. So we're hiring people that are going to be working within the communities and to just reach out to people. We're gonna try to stop retaliatory violence. They treat violence the same way that you treat an epidemic. So you quarantine it to an area and you attack the root causes of it. So that's one program that we have. We're also gonna work on activating our community centers more. Recently, we passed $2 million for a community center in Plainview. This is one of the hot spots we have in our city. Again, it's people who have lived there forever, the parents, the grandparents, a lineage there, a lot of institutional violence there, established gangs who've had the territory for a while. So we're going to open up a lot of these centers, the same with the Atwater Center, the same with the Brewer Center, Empower Evergreen, for programs like this, for people to come in. Hopefully we'll have longer hours that people can come in, kids can come in, have something different to do than what they're currently doing. So those are two things that we're pointing out. I hear you guys as far as wanting to have city investment in programs, and a lot of the smaller programs that everybody's out there fighting for dollars. This is one of the heartbreaking things I've seen the 2 years I've been in here. With the pandemic, funding's dried up for so many organizations, so many grassroots organizations. So we're gonna continue working on that. We're gonna try and focus, because frankly, you guys are the ones out there doing all the work. So we're reassessing everything. We have quite a bit of a budget deficit coming up because ARPA funds run out. So in 2026, right now we're facing, I believe, a $10 million to $12 million deficit. We have to figure that out as well. I hear you on transit. That's something we're looking at right now too. I get pushed all the time from people in my community. Free transit or low cost transit, increase the hours, increase the bus routes, make sure people have a chance to be able to get to work. People have a chance to get to a lot of these programs that they need. So those are just a few of the things we are working on. But again, just hold our feet to the fire on this. If there's a chance, if there's something that we're missing, reach out to us and tell us. What are the things that you're seeing that are successful? What are the things that you're seeing that we can help invest in? So we're here to learn. We're here to listen. I appreciate you guys putting this together and inviting us. And we're just going to continue to look for opportunities to help you guys out as well.
On your invitation, I'm a member of the Juvenile Corrections Advisory Board and the City Council Liquor Tax Board, and there is no treatment available for adolescents for fentanyl, none. And people are dying, and it's urgent, and it's too big. It's too big for a little entity. It's not a one-year grant program. It's similar to like trying to do the mental health issue. It's something that has to be sustained, and that is a crisis.
Yes, sir.
And I would hope that that gets attention to where you can hear the numbers, and you can hear from the people that are seeing this and know that that we have to do something.
Yes, sir. The sheriff has been good about trying to get into schools and be a little more proactive about stopping it before it happens. This is an issue that's affected me personally on a number of levels. But specific to teens using this right now, we did reach out to Safe Streets last year. We provided some funding to hand out Narcan and naloxone kits along certain hotspots. The city and the county is getting combined $15 million over the next 13 years from the opioid settlement. Right now we have a group that's out looking. They'll probably reach out to your group at some point about where are the gaps? What do we need to fund with this? We're looking at things like treatment for people who don't have insurance, medical detox for people who don't have insurance, reaching out to the children in schools. What can we do to help with that? I do believe we have Narcan kits in all the high schools. I know there have been people who have talked about it in middle schools. I don't know where we're at on that. There's a little back and forth on that one. But this plan that we have, that is one of the things that we're hoping to identify with.
Well, it's targeted.
Yeah.
It's treatment that's missing, inpatient treatment.
Yeah.
And it's critical.
And last week I was in Topeka. We were talking our legislative issues. I brought this up to members who are on the corrections committee because they have about $130 million from the opioid settlement fund. And I was talking about let's also look at where we can find gaps, where you guys can come in behind us and support us So we do have money, we will have a plan out later this year to identify the gaps and put that funding where it needs to be.
So let me jump in there. We have some fentanyl experts in the room and some clinics, and Jeff, thank you for coming. Nathan, you wanna jump in here?
Yeah,
Just go ahead and move
Nathan
forward.
Magruder, I'm the clinical director for Seventh Direction. We work with Lamont quite a bit, some of his kids, and I see some familiar faces here. We probably serve up to 350 adolescents per year for substance use treatment. I've been working with adolescents since 2010. And I have never, ever seen anything like this with the fentanyl. This morning, one of our clients' moms calling, hey, I found Cody in the backyard. We had to hit him with the 4 doses of Narcan. Thank you for giving those to us. It's a crisis, and it's last week. I did 2 assessments on 2 16-year-old female fentanyl users that do not have access to care to inpatient treatment right now. There's one provider in the state that deals with adolescent females. The waiting list is about 2 to 3 months at this point in time. Last year, we did have an adolescent that passed away on the waiting list for that program. We've been trying to do the best we can because we're just an outpatient provider. We don't turn anybody away. We go into JDF, we go into JRF, we go to ERC. We're dealing with the toughest of the toughest kids here. And the bad thing is we don't have the resources here in Wichita to keep them alive long enough for treatment to work. And that's where we're struggling at right now. So we can only do so much as an outpatient provider when we get to see them.
When you say the toughest of tough kids, what do you mean when you say that?
Gang members.
Okay, that's what I want.
Gang members, the fentanyl users. We have groups, and we just say you gotta leave that stuff at the door. Because we have groups where we've had people pull knives out in our facility, we've had gang fights and all that stuff, but we don't turn them away. We're trying to do what we can for them. But and with the fentanyl users, that stuff is, we're really gonna have to look at what we need to do for prevention for fentanyl use. Because once they start using that substance, we're in an uphill battle at that point in time. We've been very fortunate that Sedgwick County has kind of come in and helped us with some MAT providers and also helping us with the uninsured youth. And just kind of going back to some of the stuff you guys were struggling about, we're starting to get some of the statistics back from the youth that we served, and they're looking pretty good as far as recidivism rates and stuff like that. And how we do it there is we do provide transportation to our facility. We have peer mentors working with these kids. We have guest speakers that come in. We're teaching them how to get into GED. We got representatives from WSU Tech coming in. We're teaching them how to do budgets. We're doing all that stuff with them the best we can before we're turning them back into our home environment. But in this whole fentanyl thing, it's not any certain economic background. It's not any certain area of town. We're getting them from Andel, we're getting them from Cheney, we're getting them from Mulvane, we're getting them from Andover, and we even got people coming in for services with us from as far as McPherson right now. There's not a lot of adolescent outpatient providers right now. There are some, but I would say we're trying to do everything we can. I know Mir did recently open up a inpatient program for 16 and 17-year-old males. And thank goodness for that. Thank goodness for the additional help we've had trying to do what we can for them right now. But we got to do something as far as inpatient care for adolescents. And if you got any questions, please ask.
Well, I would just clarify that the inpatient care, you're talking, I'm Steve Stone, I'm the corrections. inpatient care is in Johnson County, in the city area. There's nothing in the largest city in Kansas for inpatient care if you're 10 to 16.
That's terrible.
And the people he talked about, the kid he talked about dying was under 16, waiting to go to Kansas City. Their county runs that, by the way.
So what I guess my question would be, because it is overwhelming and we know that
It is.
the deaths.
And we're taking a lot of kids on that we probably aren't appropriate to work with because we know they don't have anything else.
I'm sure they're.
Like I said, we're having to lock our back rooms because they can't make it 2 hours without trying to get a hit of fentanyl.
So how are we communicating, and I know we're probably doing some education within the school system, et cetera, but how are we getting that out to the community to really demonstrate how deadly it is? And again, I've been affected in our family as well.
Yeah.
So knowing that, I'm sure most of us understand how deadly it is. So how do we communicate effectively to our communities? Is it through our churches? Is it through all of us? How are we going to stem the tide on how important it is for us to get together and do this together right now? What do we do?
Yeah, because we are behind on this.
Absolutely.
We're about 2 or 3 years behind it, is where we're at on that. And I've done a lot of presentations and I'm happy to go speak wherever I need to.
So I want to redirect that
Yeah.
to law enforcement as well, because I know that Jeff has been doing a lot with the fentanyl.
If you got kids, get them to us, we'll do what we can.
Why are there not treatment centers for youth? Is it an insurance liability thing? Is it, what is
So I
it?
could probably
Barrier.
speak to that, and again, it comes down to money. What insurance reimburses is not financially feasible for any organization to go open it up as a standalone. Now, if they're a big organization and they have stuff throughout the state and like that, but when you're dealing with those adolescents, there needs to be a doctor on call, needs to be a nurse on call. You got to provide schooling and all this other stuff, and it's not financially feasible for someplace to open. I know I talked to Johnson County, the one successful one that we have in the state of Kansas. They have to, with what the insurance pays, they have to supplement that whole payment on top of it to break even. And that's where the bind up is.
Are there any other successful programs and models around the country that can be?
I think Johnson County is where we need to take a look at.
Okay.
I really do. I know last I heard, Sedgwick County may be putting out a request for an inquiry for that, and we got together and we all talked, and we talked to Johnson County and stuff like that. But I don't want it to sound like it's hopeless, because we have some success stories and stuff like that, but also there's some that we aren't getting to quick enough. And and when we got this crime prevention and Seventh Direction became involved in that, I reached out to the schools like, hey, here's what we can do. I didn't get a response from the mental health side of USD 259, and I don't know why. Of course, once we're working with system-involved kids already, that's not a big deal. They're going to come to us. But we've been doing a little bit better about getting to these fentanyl users and some of these other kids before they're system-involved and before it's too late. Like, just last week, you guys were talking about middle school and stuff like that. We now have an 11-year-old in treatment with us at Seventh Direction. Not for fentanyl, for cannabis use, but that's when you guys were talking earlier about it's getting to be a younger and younger thing. Absolutely it is. I've been doing this for over a decade, and it just keeps getting younger and younger and younger. But for any of the grassroots agency, if you want a live captive audience, we do peer mentoring groups up there where we have guest speakers and stuff all the time. Please come talk to me. We do them every Friday. We can do them throughout the week or whatever we need to do to get connected, because a lot of times, like, these kids will come in and they'll do really good in our treatment program because we're going in and we're picking them up. We're getting their families involved. We're getting them to mental health appointments. We're getting them over to a Suboxone provider. They're hooked up with a peer mentor. But treatment's temporary. We can't keep people in treatment for, a year or 2 or 3 or something like that. We need to have something set up for, actually, we need to be working together while they're in treatment, so when they discharge, these things are set up. They're already involved in something, so we can pass that baton on.
And I just say one thing to Clay.
Go ahead.
Is creating the political will to do something about it. And it isn't gonna be grassroots organizations that are gonna be able to have an accredited type of a hospital setting for inpatient treatment that's not a group home and that's gonna serve females and males that are in the age group of 10 to 16. It's the most expensive thing to do. And to be licensed is a very arduous process, but it's gonna take professionals and bringing in the medical community and like has been done with mental health, the mental health hospital. Just add it on to that.
That brings me to my next question for that, was how does the city plan to allocate resources for dealing with the fentanyl crisis? Because that's definitely out of our hands for that one. And maybe the chief or mayor can, maybe Jeff.
Sure, can I say really quickly, while we've added more folks into the room so that everyone's aware of who's around. Obviously, we have Sheriff Jeff Keister with Sedgwick County, Wichita Police Chief Joe Sullivan. We have Terry Moses with Wichita Public Schools, as well as Dr. Polite right over here with the Future Ready Advocate Mentors. We have Chairman Ryan Beatty over here, and I see Commissioner, yes, sorry. So we have a lot of people here at the table that when you invited, we want to be part of the solution. And I think that already signals that. As you heard from Councilmember Hoheisel, there are limited dollars and there are competing challenges. I mean, I just mentioned one, homelessness. Our community is asking us also to take a leadership role on tackling that major issue. And just last week, we finally, across the street, Sedgwick County, and our lawmakers talked about the location of this psychiatric hospital. So there are multiple challenges that we are trying to solve as a community and bring more people to the table. So I would pass the mic to the folks who have been doing that work as they have been the ones closest to the issue.
So I'm Jeff East with the Sheriff's Office. Just a few things kind of encompassing this entire conversation. How many of you all were here when Weed and Seed was in play? The Weed and Seed program for the federal government. I know the two cops were involved there. And so what that program was federal dollars that was Weed and Seed for a specific area, and it was a lot of money. And so what happened out of that was a lot of grassroots type activities. They went through a vetting process and they rewarded the money. And through Weed and Seed, what you saw is a reduction, because what we had back then in the 90s was a lot of gang issues, was a reduction of some of the gang activity that's taking place, but a lot of juvenile intervention based upon grassroots. So I know it works. The problem was the federal government had a new president come in, did away with Weed and Seed, and they never replaced it. So what we've been struggling here with is how do we replace that money to do exactly what you're talking about? And that's been the problem for 15 years. And so in the end, and I don't want to speak on Chief's behalf, in the end, what law enforcement did, I was with the police department for several years, we started putting on, if you heard of Plainview Activity Camp for Kids, the Atwater Camp, and the Evergreen Camp. Now those were great, and we brought in some folks that were grassroots and those type of things. Bishop Moore, David Gilkey, Real Men and Real Heroes was very active back then. They came in, but that's a weak camp. But there wasn't anything to really pass those kids off to. And in the end, was it beneficial for us? Yeah, it got kids to understand that we're not always bad guys and all that other stuff. But in the end, did it do those kids any justice? Because they let down their guard a little bit,
They got involved in the camp, did some positive things, learned some stuff, and then they went right back to the environment they were from. And then they had to wait another year to attend the camp. So, I'm saying that because we tried some of those things, and during that time frame, did we see a reduction for about 6 months in juvenile crimes in those neighborhoods? Absolutely, we did. We tracked it. That's why we kept on doing those camps. But in the end, it comes down to, can we do that all the time, and what groups want to help us? Because in the end, it should be a pass-off. Just like the neighborhood associations, work with the neighborhood associations, but in the end, the neighborhood associations are the ones that are taking care of that neighborhood. And so, to Mark's questions and dialogue, we have a huge problem with any type of in-house, inpatient, juvenile drug programs. They don't exist. And unless you have insurance, they don't exist for adults either. There's only one group that can do it, and that's SAC, and they're booked out. And so that's an overall problem, but it's kind of, in my opinion, separate from trying to get these kids to the right people, to help them make those life choices that are a little bit better, guide them. APPs are real heroes, but I worked with them extensively. Some of the stuff that real heroes did with them. Your big brothers, big sisters, those type of groups. And so, I'll be supportive of, if what from the sheriff's office we can do to help guide these kids to the proper people. We can give some advice, but it's not the same. It's not going to be heard the same way as it's heard from you all. And so that's basically all I got on. But the fentanyl issue is it's a real issue. And we decided to address it through education and prevention. We've got to change the mindset of these young kids that doing any type of drugs is okay, because that's part of the problem. And now fentanyl being laced with every other drug, including cannabis, is very problematic. But we also don't have the inpatient services to actually give these kids the treatment they need because they're already addicted. And so we got to figure out where that is. I actually sat on the board. It's going to look at the opioid settlement money. I can tell you already where I'm going to be pushing is prevention, education, treatment. Period. Because we've got to change the mindset of this generation so that 10 years from now, maybe we don't have near the problem we have. So.
Thank you, Jeff. I think that's why this goes hand in hand, because we're dealing with fentanyl, and I've been to these clinics, I visit these clinics, I've spent time with Nathan in this clinic, and I was kind of shocked and surprised to see how many gang members that I knew in the streets and youth that we've been dealing with that were actually in these clinics. So that was shocking to me to know that some of these kids that we were dealing with out here that I just thought were gang members and, just doing the thing are addicted to fentanyl and dealing with the fentanyl. So it's worse than I thought, but they're going hand in hand. And now Pastor Odell was supposed to be in here. He didn't make it. We had a conversation together about some kids with Alex Avendano, which I've worked with Alex Avendano quite a bit, and Chad Hitch. And that conversation was a lot of these kids are seeing what we talk about when we say we want something positive in their life. We want you to work, do this or that, but they got a shoebox full of money from selling fentanyl in the closet, and they're driving a brand new car. And we want them to go get a job for $10 to $15 an hour. So that's really not what we're going after. We're really going after, like somebody said, to change, to really be a positive role model in their life and let them know that this is a dead end. We got men that we're dealing with in the county jails. These are 2 men that we've been dealing with for a while. This guy was out here. We ministered to him for a while. He is now in the jail ministering. He was an active gang member. And now we're doing positive things and sending men outside of the jail. So if we can be a voice for some of these kids, I think, going from Cornelius to Billy Brown and other brothers. If you were a gang member, raise your hand. If you spent a long term in prison, raise your hand. All the men that I see and brought into this room no longer walk on that. They're serving this community. They serve. These girls serve. They were gang members who fought against rivals against each other. They now serve the community. They go back into the community. We just need more of this. We need more avenues to come back in and be able to serve. So you got men and women who literally have their hands up saying, we will come in here and we will serve. Chief, my hat's off to you because you've been, ever since you came here, we've been involved with you. And I've seen you out there in the street. You called us, you've been involved. So we need police doing what the chief has been doing. And my hat's off to you because he's been involved. We've had him in street events, yeah. So we just want to continue that on. I'm gonna go to the next question for time. This is kind of for the whole panel, I guess, so that anybody can jump in on this question. Judge, I wanted to address you too. You guys, everybody knows Judge Rick Macias. He's a friend of mine as well. We've been brothers and talking over the phone for a while and kind of dealing together. Rick has talked about the youth and dealt with the youth and talked about maybe building a program as well to do more for the kids. Judge sees a lot of kids coming in and out, and then sometimes finds out that they got killed before the next court date or this or that. So,
Two of them this whole weekend.
Judge, you want to go ahead and speak on that?
Well, thanks for inviting me here, Jose, and I just simply say this. Everybody's here because they care about what we have here. And I appreciate Mayor's got a big job to do, Sheriff Easter, Chief, and everybody here. By the time they get to me, and I've been assigned to the juvenile division ever since I've been a district court judge for 6 years. By the time they get to me, not all of them are bad. Some of them really had some bad circumstances. And I could spend, and I'm sure all of us could spend a lot of time going over some of these things. But I'm listening to everyone. I was making a lot of notes here. And what I see seems to be a common denominator from all of us. The lack of parenting is the first thing. Most of us, or some of us, were fortunate to have parents that kept you in line, and as a result, they would graduate and move on. Not everybody has that. But when we can do that in those cases where there's some lack of adequate parenting or absentee is mentorship. And that's kind of what you guys have been saying in one form or another. I've had tons of them that, again, by the time they get to me, it's a little past some of what you're talking about. Ideally, you're dealing with the symptoms of some of these things, and you have to do that. The fentanyl, in fact, I got another kid here just wanted, hey, just let me know about one fentanyl. But if we could start even younger, they're still in grade school. And I think it was this gentleman here, I'm sorry, in the Texas colors, burnt orange. Yeah, Pastor Robinson, okay. I think you said right, you could do some of these things, or treatment. When I served on the Kansas Board of Healing Arts, we learned that treatment's great, but it takes, ultimately, it's years before you're actually past all that. And if we do a one-time week or whatever, one-time intervention, that's one thing. But until they get, and I think it was this gentleman who said, or I can't remember, get to where they have marketable skill. They got a job. They got something, because I think you said they lack hope or something like that. And they do, then what are you going to turn? You're going to turn to the easiest way? Like you said, you got a box full of, I think you said a shoe box full of fentanyl, you still make a lot of money. But to get that pride instilled, we can do that early on, almost mentorship when they're in grade school, junior high, I think we should say. Not that we give up on those that are older, no doubt about that. And it is very expensive. But ultimately, even when someone is an addict, usually there's some other issue behind it. Even if you get them dry, get them off the crutch, there's usually some emotional issue. And that's where this other treatment, individual treatment, comes in. And it is expensive, but that's one area that we really need to spend more. Otherwise, I see them later as an adult. And then I feel like, man, I failed. I make a terrible second parent from what I say. I do the best I can, and all well, from Steve helping all those, and Mario, when we're dealing with it in the juvenile, either detention or JRF, we are working our tails off. It's good to know some of these exist. I want to see about when we put kids on probation programs. That's part of it. Is that they've got to, attend your service or whatever the case is. Something that catches their attention. Because I'm an old gray-haired guy. They're not going to let that. Somebody said, "Oh, they listen to you before they listen to me." And maybe even Sheriff Easter said that. Yeah, I don't know how much you listen to me, but someone who can make an impression is what we would love to have on almost every case. So anybody wants to be a mentor, I got plenty of jobs for you there. Go ahead.
Thank you, Judge Macias. You had the honor of actually sentencing one of my sons, and I watched you labor in showing compassion and mercy to him in such a way that I think speaks to his conscience even today, knowing that he's struggling with going back to his neighborhood every single day. We've had the privilege of moving out to the west side. Originally, they come from the south side of Plainview. Father gang member, uncles gang members, and so on and so forth, all the way from California. And so this is just embedded and ingrained in their blood, in a sense, to those of us who believe in the Lord and know spiritual warfare. This is a generational curse. But again, to speak to on the behalf of what I've watched you be able to do in your part for my son and try to show him compassion and mercy, I just wanted to speak to that. Also, Brother Nathan, you were speaking about, okay, we know the issues, right, that we have and a lot of the tragic stories, but you was also saying let's not forget about the success stories. And I think a lot of those success stories, and I just want your confirmation, are rooted in relationship, correct?
Yeah, and a lot of these young people that we get, they come back to us later on. They're like, you know what, we get it now. And that's the best feeling ever. It's not a total loss. I mean, but you're right, it's the relationships. That's where I'm so glad that we have a really big peer mentoring department with that, because those are other people in recovery that they get that bond with. But like I said, that treatment's short term. It's like, what are we gonna have in place when we can get them sober, we can get them in the right direction, but what are we passing it off? Where's those relationships going to be? Because we got good relationships with a lot of those kids. We laugh and we kid with them and all that stuff, and we build that rapport with them, and they know we care. Most importantly, because we're going and we're picking them up and we're taking them to appointments and all that stuff. But then there comes a point in time where treatment's got to be done, and then it's just kind of like.
Yeah. And so what it seems as though is that we understand the lack of funding or whatever, right? But what I've noticed, and just what's been on my heart, first of all, we can see, don't think that your labor is in vain, right? Don't think that you're doing good in the community is for no reason. It is making an impact. I think a lot of our focus sometimes can be on, what am I receiving, right? In my time, we all got bills. We all have our own homes that we have to provide for, and it is laborious. I mean, we have time that we have to spend with these children who may not be attached to our households and our own kids and our marriages and things of that nature. And so it's almost like some sense of compensation has to be there, right, for the time that we put in. But I would like to say that the compensation for our time is the crime decrease, is the children and the generations that are being affected by our time. You know what I mean? And so back in the day, we lived with simplicity. It was, our pawpaws and our mamas, and it was such a simple living that also gave interest and attention to a lot of it takes a village, right? And so I think if we was to implement some of the just simple things of just being there and being a body available without anything in return, you know what I mean? Which I think is what we see right here. No one's getting paid for this meeting, right? Right? We just genuinely care for the problem at hand. And so just being bodies on the boots on the ground with these youth, of course, beginning in middle school, knowing that if we can catch them at middle school, making genuine relationships, genuine, pure-hearted relationships with these youth, that it'll help decrease what we see happening once they get into 8th grade, 9th grade, and so forth.
So for time's sake, go ahead and jump in real fast. Do that, like you had something.
Yeah, my name is Billy Brown. I'm with the Body of Christ ICT. Real quick, I grew up gangbanging, selling drugs. I've done 11 years in prison, and fully committed my life to Christ about 8 years ago, and I'm a sold-out servant now. But I said that to say this. I used to think early in my walk that, I wasted half my life to the streets and the prison. But God showed me that that He can use anything for His glory. So now my passion is to tell my story to the youngsters that are going through what I've been through, because I know that they can relate to me and I can relate to them. So, been working with Jose from the start of Body of Christ ICT, and we've been working to get into the juvenile facilities. Again, my background, although nothing comes up now because I've been good for so long, it's still there for law enforcement things or whatnot. But I think we got an avenue in there now. But I just wanted to answer the question you were talking about, Jeff, about where do you pass them to? Because there's that gap there. Well, that's who we want to be. You know, because we can continue, we can have a lifelong relationship with all these kids from there on out, a positive one. Because that was our goal to begin, was to get in the juvenile facility and not go beat them with a Bible, but go play basketball with them and be their friend and love on them. And then they can ask me, hey, you've been to prison, you went to juvenile, what happened? I can tell them my testimony. And then try to change their soul so we can change their intentions, and it all comes with the heart. So I just wanted to throw that in there. What that looks like, we don't exactly know yet because we're still trying to get in the facility. But hey, any one of them could call me now and I'll go get them, take them to eat. We'll go play basketball. We could go watch a movie. They can come to men's group, teen group at my church, at Word of Life. Like, we got so many options. We just need to get access to them. It's all we're really looking to.
And what I would say, Brown, is that in the 90s with that weed and seed money, that's exactly what occurred. Is there was a handoff point from law enforcement to groups that were vetted per se, and that money was funneled to them to do exactly what you're talking about. So we're not talking about reinventing the wheel.
Yeah.
It's already been done. It's just a matter of what is that funding mechanism now to do that again. And we saw successes out of it.
Even without the money.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Madam Mayor, is there anything that you can organize a core group that even without the finances, those individuals and those organizations that are willing to do the work, that you could say, okay, I've got this group. Years ago, there was something called God Squad or whatever the issue. Could you organize something with a group of individuals that's in the community, not gonna say in others, that you could, information you could pass on? And forget the money, okay, the money ain't there, it may be there. But we need to do something, whether the money is there or not.
Come on.
Because those are our kids dying in the streets. And sooner or later, they're gonna kill somebody you love if you ignore it.
I know the money is important for the bigger vision, like it's talking about having a one-stop shop for this, or that any of them can go. But I'm talking about right now, they can call me, Jose, brothers, and hey, I'll be there. I'll show up with nothing but love and do whatever I can. In the meantime.
So it takes a village to break up, right? And we have a lot of single parents, that's why there's so much broken. I can't be single at home. That's why I grew up in. Trying to find the love in the right places, which it wasn't, right? So what we're saying here is we're here because we've been there. We're trying to be here. So it takes a village to be that, and we all have different parts of this. We have police, we have all of it. So how can we help as of right now to, instead of waiting 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 a year from now before hundreds of kids get killed? What can we do now to enforce and try to help? And it's going to take help from different parts of the city, because there's different city, areas that it's affecting, from the north side to the east side, to the west side, all sides. And so we have boots on the ground that are ready, that we have hearts for it. When the funding comes, then amen. But what can we do now is what we're trying to say.
Like I said, I got a captive audience up there. Anybody sitting in this room is absolutely at any time welcome to come up and sit in and know these kids. We don't have the background checks or anything like that. You just have to sign a HIPAA release. That's it.
Okay, so for time, we're gonna jump over here to Commissioner Jim Howard.
I just want to say, there's a lot of heart in this room, a lot of programs we're talking about, a lot of effort being expended. I look at Mark Masterson. My connection with him initially was he was in charge of the Judge Earl Boys Ranch and in charge of juvenile justice and corrections for Central County. He has a great history there. I got interested in this topic because of people like Mark Masterson. Something has happened, though. A few years after I got involved in this, the state of Kansas actually had a piece of legislation. I know it was well intentioned and maybe overall 60% good, but 40% bad. I'll just say it that way. It did some good things, but I think it also created some limitations on what government can do. They got rid of all of the out-of-home placement options for criminogenic youth that were not actually convicted of violent crimes. They had no place to put these kids. They leave these kids intermingled with sink kids. We have a foster care disaster in our state. It's a disaster. And our criminogenic youth that basically have parents, but they're struggling, okay? They're placed as if they don't have parents. And that's a problem. We're intermingling our sink kids, our children in need of care kids with our juvenile criminogenic kids. We're mingling them together because they have no placement options. Or these kids are left home in their environment and they can't get them out of a bad environment because we have no placement options. And so these kids just spiral out of control. They have gang influences and drug influences and bad parenting problems, but there's no place for these kids to go. And correct me if I'm wrong, Sheriff, I want to put you on the spot here, and Chief Sullivan and my friend here, Judge Macias. But tell me, what happens if you catch a kid driving around town at 14 years old in a stolen car with a gun at 2 o'clock in the morning? What happens to these kids?
Well, I can tell you right now, kind of what goes on is if they're not a felon and that kind of stuff, they'll go to JIAC and their parents are called to come get them for those kinds of things. Now, if it's a violent crime, Steve, correct me on this, but if it's a violent crime, then they go to JDF.
So now, if there's no crime committed, okay, they open a case, 30 days later that case is closed. If they reject any type of programming that we offer these kids, they can reject it. That case is closed basically 30 days or 6 weeks later. And then next thing you know, these kids are back out to do it again. There's no consequences. And they know it until they're 18. Or if they do what this other 14-year-old did the other day and shot somebody, then there's no consequences. But if they don't do that, basically our hands are tied. We actually had a better system before. And some of the solution here may be legislative. We invested in Judge Boyd's Ranch and places like that. We had places to put these kids. I'm not sure if it was because we're cheap or whatever, but for some reason we got rid of some options out there. We changed the laws, so we are now limited. We can't do things that actually make sense. From the government's perspective, the judge's hands are tied because we have laws that messed us up. Yes, sir.
Judge, what type of pre-conviction authority do you have? Can you enforce in juvenile? Can you enforce anything pre-conviction? Any sort of activity, any sort of mentorship, any sort of rehab, or what authority do you have pre-conviction?
Yeah, so if a kid comes in, first of all, the sheriff was right. Like the scenario you had, driving around 2 o'clock, got a gun, that's actually a misdemeanor. And he was later convicted.
But they stay overnight.
Well, they might, sometimes they call me, but usually they do. But the idea is ultimately if there's a conviction, it's just a misdemeanor and there's no possible jail time. And these youth kind of get the word out, hey, there's not much they can do to you. It's only probation. And again, this one who was involved this past weekend had something similar just a few weeks ago. But again, and I think the idea was we want to have a lot more compassion. We certainly don't want to detain kids anymore than we have to. But it may have gone a little bit too far because there's got to be consequences to any of our actions. And when they realize there's really there's not any consequence, you always worry about then what message is that sending. I remember that as a young lawyer helping a young kid. I thought, are we really doing him a favor by getting him out of trouble every time or not? And I started worrying about that. I was just a 20-some-year-old lawyer. Sadly, 10 or 12 years later, I read where he was killed in a crime thing. And I thought, we probably did him a disservice by doing that. I could just tell you this. There really should be some types of, and the direct answer to your question is, yes, there's some things we can do. We could hold them. We could hold them if they think that if they pose alternate, there's a lack of alternate placements that would protect the public from serious consequences of either actions or their property, then we can go ahead and hold them. And even quite frankly, in juvenile court, we don't have to give a bond to anybody. And I think the theory is, if we're going to release them, they're going to go back to the parents, who the parents may or may not have been the one who lack of control, and that's what, they're going to be right back again. But we have to take every one of those case by case, and it depends on the seriousness, of the crime.
Judge, they got, I think he mentioned stipulations. And I think what he means, like in adult, you got pretrial,
Oh, yeah.
where they'll make you do these things. I think that's.
We
what
can do that, for example, all right, I'm gonna let you out here, but you can't go back to this school because that's where the victim was, and you got this, and these are type of
Gang
things.
stipulations.
Yeah, and as long as you're doing these things here, we're gonna let you go home. Often it's over the objection of the state. The DA's, saying something different. If we locked up everybody, then, anybody could do this job. You basically have to, you have to look at it, it's a risk assessment, and you make the best call you can.
But that's if they're charged.
Well, if they don't come before me unless they're charged,
There's a whole
it's something
diversion
initially
process
too.
up front where it's pre-file diversion and those things that are in place. And there's intake and assessments and meeting with the family. And in the end, we have underutilized programs that are funded off of that because of a lack of teeth. And it's not your problem.
Yeah, I don't. That's before they get to.
Well, I think I was getting at we have people that are willing to do work. If there's ways to require some of that pre-conviction, after charge, pre-conviction intervention of sorts, to where there are mentors that can step into that gap. And, I know it's sorely needed in the foster care community.
If I may, again, my name is Matt Conan. I'm with Hold My Ministry. My wife, my brother Bazooka's with our ministry. I'm gonna always say God is the solution. I mean, it's an obvious elephant in the room that we totally neglected the youth. All right. Like we can all see that. And that's not a dart at anybody that's involved in any children or youth groups or anything like that. Just as a total picture, let's admit that first and foremost. And that's who we're called to protect. You know what I'm saying? They're out there on their own in this wilderness we call Wichita. You know what I'm saying? And so, ma'am, I did 25 years in prison for murder at the age of 19. What happened to you, I did to another one. And it took a long time for me to understand what I did and what caused me to do that. And it all boils down to identity. We have to realize that. So for us to uninclude God in this picture, I think is wrong. You picture any problem you have. We have some well-to-do looking people here. But even pick if you had an alcoholism problem at some age, anger, if you had lust, if you had gangbanging, whatever you had, the reason why it happened is because there was something missing in your identity and you latched onto that. And so when I went through my process, I'm gonna try to bring this into a nutshell. I'm not gonna, you cut me off if you got it. But the thing is this, when we got youngsters out here and we talked about absentee parents and single parent homes and all this other stuff, and we know the symptoms. But now let's think it from the kids' point of view, man. We got these kids that are lacking love. And so when they go out there, I was one of them. I didn't gangbang, but I was a thug. I might as well have been a gangbanger. I responded the same way. It ended in murder. So my thing is I looked out there and found other broken people and I could identify with them. And that to me became love. And I locked into that relationship and it evolved into something that was more criminalistic, more evil, and more devious than I even intended it to be. And so what ends up happening is this. Somebody will join a gang. And I say this, I'm not talking like y'all don't know this, but let's understand the nature of what we're dealing with. Somebody will join a gang under this duress of not having love, of not having parents, and finding a family in the streets. And so what ends up happening is they lock onto it. Now you got dudes from 14, 15, 16 up into 40. I've been out of prison after 25 years for 7 years now. And I got dudes that is up in there that's 50 years old, sagging, still talking about cuz blood. Because they can't let it go. Now, how strong is this hold that somebody that's jumped into a gang when they were 13 or 14 is at 40 still holding themselves accountable to this pledge they made under duress? See, we need people like me, like so-and-so, everybody that's been through something that is an accredited mentor, somebody that's been through it, somebody that they can see themselves in and break this chain. Yes. And the only way we're going to do it, we're not going to replace it with, pick your higher power. Because your higher power is going to be something that leads you down another road of control because it's going to be money or fame or status or something different. We need to include the gospel back into this, man.
Hey, raise your hand if you're a felon and Jesus got a hold of you.
Man, come on.
Man.
I wasn't feeling Before Chad Easter got me, Jesus got it.
But I'll round sum that up and then I'll step back. That, you know, money comes up and it seems like, you know, oh, you're a Christian. Why are you asking for money? I hear that all the time. And me and my wife spend our dime and our time every place that we can. Every time my bro calls me, we hear. Bazooka's here. We're all, our ministry is across the nation as much as we can. But it takes money. Let's not play with it, man. Let's not play around with it. So now, I'll shut up, I swear after this. There's money allocated to certain stuff. What that is, I don't know. I don't have no huge knowledge in what we're talking about. I'm an ex-criminal trying to be the best I can in Christ. So there's things I don't know. But I can guarantee that there's millions of dollars allocated to some crap, some nothing program that could be better served in what we're talking about. So when we say we have no money, do we really have no money? Do we really? I see abandoned buildings that could be fixed up probably for $40,000 and be youth facilities on every corner. I'm done.
Can I point you to what you want to know? The most successful violence, intervention program is Homeboy Industries. Nothing stops a bullet like a job. Okay, Father Boyle. That brings in exactly what you're talking about here, and is in East LA, came from the war zone, has 40 years in, and UCLA research behind it. But it is a faith. Father Boyle is a
most
Catholic.
successful groups in doing this, and I spoke on this earlier, is the church. It is ex-gang members who surrender to the church. If you go around the nation and look at it, it is the men who walked this walk before and surrendered to Christ.
And now it's a big community center in the middle of East LA, because Father Boyle, it didn't just stop there. What was a community need, and they'd start it. Whether it was a school for adults, but now it's a community center, and it has all kinds of people like you're calling yourself, and that are part of it and the heart of it, and it brings in the business community, jobs, and that's money.
Can I ask a question real quick? It's for Chief Sullivan. Captain Stevens used to head a program called SERVE, in which they brought in the top 20 offenders, and they met with people like Violence Impact, brothers like this brother right here, and Mr. Brown. They met with them and the FBI and everything like that, and they were able to talk to them and try to steer them away from it. Why did that go by the wayside, if you know? And is it something that we can do again? It was known as SERVE.
Focused deterrence.
Yeah.
Yes, version of focused deterrence. Why it went away, I can't tell you. It's long before I knew what state Wichita was in. My executive officer, do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, so I actually ran SERVE kind of right before it ended, and what we found is it didn't have the teeth that we needed it to. We weren't able to get people to show up. We would send out the letters, and we would get 1 or 2 people that were on probation that were required to show up, but we weren't having the impact that we were looking to have. Focused deterrence works.
We had the judge here, can he help us in that area?
Well,
perhaps.
I wish I could get everybody to show up like they're supposed to.
So that was one of the challenges that we dealt with was getting the target audience in the room, and so that was a big issue. We would bring all these people in from the community and say we're going to have this focused deterrence meeting with juveniles that we've identified, could be a threat to other people or could find themselves being a victim of crime, and we bring in the FBI, we bring in the ATF, we bring in community members, and we get 1 kid to show up out of 25. So that's not, I think, returning the investment that we would like it to. Now there are other models out there that we can look at.
And we are. And so the next step is that the assistant city manager, Dante Martin, he is working with WSU and an organization called Pure Violence. And by March, the goal is to have violence interrupters on the street doing community and hospital-based violence interruption. And I just met with them last week through Zoom. We pledged them our full cooperation, and we're going to be providing them data. We're going to be providing them information. information on ongoing conflicts, like we do now with the ministerial league, who just this past weekend were out helping us with families that are in conflict with one another. Unfortunately, we had something completely unrelated interrupt. But I'll say this to you: there's no reason why the work that the assistant city manager is doing, why that program could not work in cooperation with a focused deterrence type program. But there's certain things that I can tell you it failed in Philly as well. It has to be fully funded, money has to be available immediately, and it requires the full cooperation of the judiciary and the district attorney's office. They have to both be completely committed to it. It is not a police-led initiative, it's a police-supported initiative. Because if we're leading it, it's not gonna work. Because that's when we bring the young people in and say to them, we love you, we want you free, and we want you alive. And if you tell us what you need to keep you that way, we will provide it. It might be Pampers, it might be a bus ticket out of town, but we need to be able to provide that service, and if we can't do that, but at the same time, we have to tell them, but if you pick up a gun, we will pull every lever we can find on you to get you off of the street, because we won't tolerate it. But we love you, and we want to find a way to keep you from having to do that. And I can't agree with you more in that comment that you made. The best way to keep a young person, one who is in an economically disadvantaged situation, from getting involved in gangs, from getting involved in violence, is to get them a job, give them a sense of positive identity, make them feel good about themselves. I don't think there's any one answer. I think it's a combination of multiple.
Can I ask Deputy
Chief, can I ask you a question?
We gotta stop right there, my brother. Appreciate you. Pastor Rob, we have to turn this room back over to class that's coming in here. So we're gonna have to stop here shortly. But I brought Pastor Rob here. Pastor Rob, how many students do you have in your school?
We have kindergarten through 12, 425.
How much violence do you have in your school?
Zero.
Zero violence. And Pastor Rob has a large group, and I think this comes back to what we were saying, why we need the church involved, why we believe that it's important to use guys like us, because I'm an ex-gang member. I came here with a task. It was not good. My life was changed. I've been walking out there ever since, and I have a large group of those men that I walked this out with and that I have. And we continue to collaborate with police, with commissioners. Jim Howell, I think he just left. We work with Jim Howell over and over again. Judge and Keena, Miss Keena with Violence Impact, they're doing humongous things. If anybody wants to get behind this, we've got to jump in and support this. Some of us, like somebody said earlier, we've been doing this out of our own pockets for a while. We'll continue. We're not going to stop doing what we do. No matter what.
Jose, I would just like to say, we do have a lot of different avenues. You're the vice chair for our Juvenile Corrections Advisory Board. There are opportunities for grassroots organizations to come and present. There is funding through KDOC and crime prevention through Cedric County. So I think we need to open that dialogue and have some of those presentations. We also have the GIAC Power Program. It's one of those upfront prevention types of programs for kids that are just entering the system or that have been arrested. With it, they go with their parent or guardian to a 3-day course where they have different presenters. So that's definitely an opportunity as well for some of these grassroots organizations. And just for the JDF part, JDF is licensed by Department of Children and Families, so we have some restrictions in those aspects. But Power Program is definitely an avenue, as well as some of those crime prevention.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm the vice chair of that board. Thank you, Marco, because he voted me in to be vice chair of that board.
We have a lot of other Chief Justice board members here as well.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for our law enforcement. Thank you for our commissioners, judges, pastors, everybody for showing up today. Pastor Rod, why don't you pray us out?
Lord, we thank you for these great men and women of God in this room that are changing lives on a daily basis, even though there's many more to be changed. Father, I pray that a revival would take place in our schools and our community. I pray, Father God, through the powers that are in this room, that the schools would allow assemblies and all the people in this room, these type of people, to speak in those assemblies on a weekly basis to start changing minds and hearts. I pray that existing programs from different pastors and groups in this room will get backed by the city, where cities don't normally back faith-based programs, but I pray that there would be an absolute revival in our city of getting behind faith-based programs. I pray that we'd be praying for the mayor, the city council, and all the different groups here. I pray that the churches in this room would have no divisions among us, but we would link arms. And Father God, we just thank you for all our kids, and I pray that things would be stirred that were in this room, that would be put into action. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Last but not least, thank you, Mayor.